Hey, welcome back. This is Dear Baseball Gods, and this is episode 65. And this week we've got an awesome guest, Coach Josh MacDonald, who is the pitching coach and recruiting coordinator currently at UCONN, the University of Connecticut Huskies baseball. So in setting up this podcast, one of the things I heard over and over about Coach MacDonald is that he is a voracious and extremely effective recruiter. So that when he finds a player that he's identified as a good fit for his program, that he's able to go after and oftentimes get that player out competing other schools as a very effective communicator. So I'm excited to hear him talk today about recruiting and about pitching development because those are obviously his specialties. And let's run down his coaching resume real quick. So he's been with UConn baseball since 2012. And since joining the staff, UConn's posted 3 of its 4 best team ERAs in the past almost 40 years, so very impressive. He's clearly made tons of strides in the UConn pitching staff. Throughout his time at UConn, he's coached a number of pitchers who've gone on in the to be selected in the MLB draft. He's coached a number of All-Americans. He's coached Players of the Year, freshman All-Americans, all that. So a lot of great accolades. He's clearly done a lot with player development, helping his guys get better and move on to the next level. He's also coached at a number of different levels, including he was a high school varsity coach, and he was also a coach in the Cape Cod Baseball League, which is one of the premier summer baseball collegiate leagues in the country. That's where all the top prospects end up playing their summer ball. Very highly scouted. An impressive place to play or coach. He's also a UConn alum, so he pitched collegiately at UConn, so he clearly, bleeds Husky blue, along with one of our former guests, Kevin Vance. So listen in. I hope you enjoy my interview with Coach Josh MacDonald. Hey, Coach. So how's everything out there on the East Coast?
Pretty good, Dan. It's a little cold today than I'd like it to be, but we've had a really a pretty wet fall here. It seemed like every other day it was raining, and it's dry right now, so I guess that's pretty good. But yeah, we're in the 30s today, and that just
Yeesh.
lets me know that we got the tough season around the corner. So.
Well, you guys probably have a pretty nice indoor facility there, right? Because you guys have football and obviously big-time basketball.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. We have a huge indoor football facility that we use in the winter. It's pretty much perfect for baseball, except we cannot hit fly balls to our guys in there that are true.
yeah.
We don't have the blue sky, things like that. And the other thing is that they don't allow us to go live in there, the university. So we have to go to there's a bubble like 20 minutes up the road that is close to it. But for everything else, in terms of all of our other training we can get done, and in terms of pitchers, it's a perfect facility for them to get their work in throughout the cold season.
Yeah, that's it's nice, I'm sure, to be. I came from a small Division I, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and we didn't have facilities like that. And my summer team, the Warwood Senators, the team I coach, we were up playing at Northwestern, and just getting to do our pregame in their like big football field house was pretty cool. Like you guys have a lot of resources, and that's that pays huge dividends, I'm sure, for you guys in the cold weather. So tell me real quick. Tell me a little bit about UConn baseball. So what kind of level of play are you guys in, your conference? Like, give me a little bit of a rundown of what, you would maybe tell a recruit before we jump into all the recruiting stuff on, the pitching side.
Yeah, I usually call UConn like baseball Alaska, like we're a part of the United States, but people kind of forget it. I think that's kind of the same way that I look at it from NCAA baseball standpoint, because we are competing at a national level. I think some people just want to kind of either forget or discredit it just because in January we do have icicles hanging off of our houses.
Well, that's why you're Huskies.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, about us, it seems to be we've always been one of the best programs in the area, and this is going back from the start of our program. But it seems like in the past, I would say 10 years or so now, we've really been able to really compete year in and year out on a national level, which is really cool. And there's been a bunch of reasons for it. I think the first very obvious reason is that our university continues to get better every day. So we're able to attract better student athletes because of the degree that they get. Secondly, Our athletic department has kind of exploded here in the past 20 years. We have a pretty good women's basketball team, in case you haven't heard of it.
Yeah, right.
We have 3 national championships in men's basketball. We have a Division I football program. All things that 20 years ago we did not have. So because of that, it's the same thing. It's sort of the trickle down effect. The other sports have also been elevated, and I think that we're one of them. Our resources are pretty good, and then we have facilities that help us to develop over the wintertime. We have the Shankman Indoor facility that's huge and wonderful and warm, and we can get in there every single day. One of the things that we'll tell a recruit is that if you're down in Miami and it's raining that day, you might not be practicing. Depending, you get one of those weird hurricanes that come through, you might not be practicing for a week. We could get 30 inches of snow, and we've gotten it, and we're in there.
Yeah.
We've shoveled out our hitting facility to get in there, so we don't have any days off. So I think that's really, really important for the development part of it. In terms of where we're at on the college landscape, we play in the American Athletic Conference. It's a primarily Southern-based conference. We're kind of the ugly duckling in it because we don't look like the rest of the other schools do. But we're playing great baseball. I think last year we were the 3rd or 4th best conference based on the RPI, and that's another reason why I think our program has been able to compete at a national level. When we're having years where we're fighting for a championship in our conference, the NCAA has recognized that, and like last year they gave us an at-large bid. Where in years past, if when we were in the Big East, if you didn't win either the Big East regular season or the tournament, you were really sweating those days.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's really helped us.
Yeah, because you definitely, I remember back to my playing days in college, like, in the America East, which is a small conference up there with, we used to have Vermont when they still had a team. And today it's like UMass Lowell and UMBC and, man, I should know better than this, Hartford. But, I mean, okay schools. But, yeah, you have to win that conference or else you have no chance of making to the tournament. So talk a little bit about that. Do you think most parents and players, when they're going through a recruiting process, do you think they know what the situation is to play in the postseason in college baseball?
They might not know as much in our neck of the woods, only because college sports in general in the Northeast are not as prevalent as they are in other parts of the country. Especially the South. And I think we also have to fight the fact that because we don't have a palm tree, at our field, that we don't know how to play baseball. So, those are the 2 biggest probably things that we have to explain the most when we are doing the recruiting process. But I think as long as we're doing a good job of explaining that we are competing on a national scene, we don't have to just play well for 1 week in May to go and have a chance to go to Omaha. Every single game that we play, from the first week in February straight through, the end of May, is pretty much a playoff game, because every win you get, you're building that resume up.
Yeah.
I think we do a good job at explaining that, to players and to parents. But yeah, I just think because it's just not part of our culture. We're very much a pro-based culture in the Northeast. We have the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Mets and the Phillies, and then we have all the other pro sports teams that it very much. I think parents and players tend to follow that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I never thought about it that way. Yeah, do you? Those guys in the South, their stupid palm trees, and say, look, guys, if there's a flock of flamingos laying on the field, you guys don't get to play today. Like, come on, like come to UConn.
Exactly.
But you guys have had a lot of success. So obviously, George Springer won a World Series ring this
last year.
Last year, yep. And then you guys have what is it? 5 major leaguers currently out there kicking it.
Yeah, we have 5 major leaguers out there. Springer and Barnes both won World Series back-to-back years. Barnes with the Red Sox this year, which was really cool in our area because of how many Red Sox fans there are.
Yeah.
And Nick Ahmed winning a Gold Glove. I think he was the first Husky to win a Gold Glove for the Diamondbacks. And then you had Scott Oberg, who was really awesome in that wild card game for the Rockies. And then John Andrioli, I think after like 7 or 8 years of really grinding out in the minors, got his chance to play for Seattle and then over with the Orioles. So we have 5 guys and a couple guys still knocking on the door to hopefully join them in hopefully the next year or so.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's dive into a little bit. So you've obviously coached, as I kind of said in your intro, you've coached high school baseball, you've coached in the Cape Cod League, you played at UConn, you coach at UConn. So I want to get into your perspective on player development and the kind of kids that you recruit, but let's kind of first start there. So when you're trying to build your staff for the future, give me a little bit, because we have a lot of parents and players that listen to this podcast, and they're always trying to figure out, okay, like, what do I need to be doing with my son? How do I navigate this recruiting process? So again, I've heard from a bunch of different sources that, you're a very good recruiter, and that you're a good communicator, very persuasive, and that you can often outcompete a lot of schools. That's what I said in your intro, for some of these guys. And I know there's tons of that stuff, because ultimately people need to feel a certain way about a school. Like, you walk on campus, and like I had this recently with a kid, one of ours from our program. He had a lot of Division I offers, and he didn't end up picking the biggest school. He chose like a really solid. He's going to Tulane, but when he stepped on Tulane's campus, he's just like, this is like the place. Like, he just loved it. He connected with the coaches, so it was like a feeling where he didn't have to go to some of the other bigger schools. Like, he had a couple of SEC schools. He's like, nope, like, I'm good. Like, I want to go here. So tell me about the recruiting process, and also, why are you laughing about Tulane?
Well, because is the kid really good?
Yeah, he is.
Well, that means I'm gonna have to face him. So that stinks.
Oh,
so,
well, smell you, Josh.
Yeah, I know. Good for Tulane, I guess. No, no. I guess a few things. The one thing that we really try not to get bogged down by when we are doing our recruiting process is really what other people think in terms of what they think about the players in the area, like all the rankings and stuff like that. It's nice when we get kids that might be on a PBR top 10 ranking, or might be a perfect game All-American, or whatever list you end up getting on. But that doesn't that certainly doesn't direct us into where our focus is. I think the first part is that I think makes us successful is that all of the coaches on our staff have been together now for 8 years. All of the coaches on our staff graduated from here. So we have an idea of what works and what works for us. And in terms of, pitchers and stuff like that, the thing that we try to find kids that have what we consider competitive stuff, and I'll go over that in a second, that throw athletically, and then we really don't worry about the rest of it. So what I mean by that is competitive stuff. Do they throw hard? Do they have plus secondary pitches? Do they seem to be able to get swings and misses when you go see them? Because those guys that throw 90 in high school and they're not striking out everybody. It's like, what is going on here?
Exactly.
Why is this kid? Forget the fact that he's not striking everybody out. How is this kid giving up even a run? So we try to really fight through that sort of BS. And then the next part that we look at is, for me, I like watching a kid that when he throws, he looks athletic. I really don't care what his mechanics look like as long as they don't really look stiff. For me, I've said it all the time. If a kid looks unathletic everywhere else in his life, we have a kid on our team that looks like that. If he looks like he can't catch a football or he's never played soccer, I don't care. But when he's throwing, does he look like an athlete? Does it come out easy? Does his arm work well with itself? And I think because of that, those guys tend to just have more success when they get up here. They tend to have jumps when they get to this level. There seems to be a higher potential there for those guys. So, we don't, I'll tell you what, very rarely when Jeff, he's one of our assistant, Coach Horrigan or Coach Pender sees a guy, they don't really tell me, hey, this kid is what his height is, what his weight is. They don't say, hey, he's 82 now, but with his frame, he'll get to this. We don't talk about that. It's, hey, he was throwing this, really good changeup or man plus secondary pitch, really athletic when he throws. The kid can have a dumpy body, and where it's just like, how does it look when it throws though? Does is it moving? Is the body working together? And then the last thing we look for, and probably the most important, does he look like he has an idea, and does he look like he's competing out there? A lot of guys really like showcases. A lot of guys like hitting the gun. We would much rather see you in a game, and we much rather get the guy that looks like he's really enjoying going up against the batter. So
yeah, it's funny you just basically described me, because I try to only throw balls, because if you see me play basketball, you're like, this guy, does he have like some sort of illness? Like, does he have like motor control issues with his body? Like, I'm not super athletic. I'm like kind of like one of those guys, but I really like the cerebral part of pitching, and I like throwing, and I looked athletic enough, I think, on the mound. But just like, let's not ever play another sport ever. Like, let me just sit on my computer or whatever.
Well, I also think that if you listen to the other things though, what you're really hearing is that the kid is not a pitcher yet, but he plays 3 sports and he's super athletic. Okay, his dad was 6'8" and he's 6'1" now. Okay, his grandfather pitched at Lehigh. Okay, you're just coming up for reasons why he's going to potentially get to where you want him to be.
Yeah.
And I think when you do that, we say all the time here, the red flags are going to show up too. You recruit a kid and he has red flags. Very rarely do those red flags go away when he steps on your campus. So if you go watch the kid and the kid looks like he can't feel the bunt, the odds of him showing up day one, all of a sudden looking like Greg Maddux out there, feeling his position, low. If that kid is 1'9" with a guy on
you're
second
still describing
base,
me, by the way. So just so you know, this is getting creepy. But all right, continue.
If the kid's a 1'9" with a guy on second base and looks like he doesn't have a clue on how to hold on runners yet, that doesn't mean that shows up when he gets there. So that's the same thing. A lot of times I talk about crystal balling. When you see a kid, everybody wants to believe the best version of that kid. To me, what I've tried to do is, in terms of limiting mistakes, and it's getting a lot harder because you have to recruit younger and younger. So this is probably something that it's definitely becoming an issue with me. But I just try to envision, okay, this kid doesn't get one bit better between now and when he gets to me. When he gets to me, can he at least compete on the mound so he doesn't have a miserable experience when he gets to college? So he can at least compete and get out.
Yeah.
Let's not worry about pro ball and draft picks and the other stuff. Can the kid at least enjoy what would be his college experience? Because you've been on a team, forget pro or whatever level, but in college, if a kid can't get guys out, or he really can't compete at that level, they don't like it anymore.
Yeah, it's a funny way of putting it. Like me and Kevin Vance, our mutual friend, we were real emo about all that. Like when we were pitching real bad, we're like, dude, it feels so bad inside to pitch bad, and then you just want to quit baseball and like go do fun stuff, like whatever that might be.
And in college, there's a lot more fun stuff to go to.
Yeah.
I think one of the lures when guys become professionals, and I never was one, is that does it get more fun to being a professional? You work at night. You don't punch in a real clock. What you do for a living is getting guys out in front of fans who either cheer or boo you. That's pretty cool. So even when you're not doing well, it's still a cool job. In college, if you're not playing and you have to still go to class and do all these other things, and this thing now becomes a hindrance, when you're like, man, I'm spending 40 hours a week trying to get better at something I'm not very good at, when I could be hanging out, with the Pike boys, you know, having toga night and, losing my mind on the weekend and, whatever, tailgating for the football game, whatever it ends up being that, you really limit yourself to because, because UMBC has to go down and play the Snowbird Classic in Port Charlotte for spring weekend instead of going to Cancun. You start to go, you know what? There are more fun options for me to have here, and I'm miserable. So I try to limit those things in terms of I'm trying to get a guy where hopefully he does not feel that way when he walks in. You know?
That makes a lot of sense because there's definitely that learning curve as a freshman. I mean, you probably expect to some degree that kids are going to come in and get beat up, right? Like they're going to throw their 87 and try to pump it by them at the belt like they did in high school and get destroyed. But yeah, I mean, I think keeping guys because it seems like a big decision point at that point in their life because you're right. Like when I look back at my college career, when you look back at yours, you don't get to do all the normal stuff that all the other kids do, and you trade that because you enjoy playing baseball and you enjoy your teammates. But if you don't, like you don't get those 4 years back. Like you just had a miserable 4 years.
Correct.
And I'm sure both of us have. Like I know I can think of a friend now. She's a soccer player. Like she does not speak fondly of her 4 years in college soccer. She didn't have fun. She didn't like the school. Her coaches, not great. Her team, it just was not the experience that she hoped it would be. So I think that makes a lot of sense in the recruiting. Like you're still recruiting people. So
yeah, and to come back to the recruiting side of it, this is where a lot of times parents and young high school players, they're looking at the shiniest toy in the box, right? Like that's the best school, that's the best program, and they're not realizing sometimes what it also means sometimes to go to those places. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like listen, Vanderbilt is a great program. If you're a pitcher at Vanderbilt, they have produced some dudes. If you are not mentally ready to go up against those dudes, though, every single day at practice, and to have to make jumps and strides every single day, what sort of experience is that for you? If you're not ready to pitch at the Division I level because physically you're not there yet, or maybe you're a guy who physically, this kid throws 90, but he doesn't throw strikes. What sort of experience are you having? Instead of maybe going somewhere else where they're going to force to kind of play you. And I've talked to parents about that all the time. Baseball's a very weird sport. And it's weird because you can get people from across the spectrum in terms of level to still make the major leagues. That does not happen in other sports. Basketball players, you're not finding basketball players from Blinn Community College jumping up in the NBA. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You don't see in football. How many guys are you seeing, from D3 become NFL players? I mean, you have a couple every year. How many junior college players are you seeing? I mean, I think there was like 24 junior college players alone in the championship series this year. Baseball is weird. It's a skill set that you can get better at, but to get better at it, you have to play it. And I think sometimes when we do this recruiting process and the things that you're talking about with parents is that, you have, State U really loves them. And you, as maybe the coach or the people around them, don't want to tell the kid, I don't know if you're ready for State U. I don't know if you're ready for big time state. You might want to go to a smaller place where you're going to get the work and innings that are needed to get you to that next level. And, that's something, too, that you kind of fight against as well.
How do you feel like, or where do you feel like parents and players can turn to figure out, am I ready to compete against this sort of competition? You're like you said with Vanderbilt, like how do they figure out that?
Well, I think a few things. I think the first thing that they have to do is, I just had a discussion with a couple parents a little bit over a month ago. And one of the things I say is that you have to gather baseball people you trust, okay? Because most parents is not someone that I would consider a baseball person, and that's okay, right? Like they're just, they're not involved with it every day. It's not what they do for a living. So you want to get yourself involved with some baseball people that you really trust. And you want them to be, basically say, hey, be completely honest about, Dan. Tell me where Dan sits. And there's going to be an answer there that you might not like. But you're going to have to at least listen to it and then act accordingly if those answers are pretty similar. So, like I said, you went to a smaller D1 school. I don't know what you were like in high school. But what I'm hoping probably happened was like, hey, yeah, that's a small D1 school, but you're going to have a chance to compete right away. The coach really likes you. The coach wants to put you on the mound right away. Maybe you could have went to Maryland. There's a couple kids, at least right now, that might be ahead of you. You should probably go there. You'll catch up eventually because you're going to get the opportunity at a younger place, at an earlier place. So you have to just listen to these baseball people. The problem is that we've now gotten ourselves to a situation where most baseball people that you're talking to now, you're also paying. So you're paying to work in their facility, you're paying to be in their program, and what's going on now is that, well, now we have a conflict of interest, huh?
Yeah.
You paid, coach at, Superstar AAU to get your kids seen. Well, now the Superstar AAU coach is saying, well, you might not be a Division I pitcher. You can still be a professional pitcher, but I think you're going to have to go to the D2 route possibly. And that's something that wasn't in the initial plan. So that's a really tough part too. But that's usually what I tell them is that get some baseball people that you really trust, listen to them, actually absorb it and make a move accordingly.
So you do a lot of, it seems like, recruiting the human, like recruiting the person. And
yes.
How do you guys use some of the new tools and analytics and all that stuff, the exit velos, the spin rates? Like, give me your take on that.
I would say that stuff hasn't really hit the youth level yet in terms of pitching wise. The spin rates and stuff you're just starting to get that. The exit velos that they started, I would say, seemed like about 5-6 years ago, where every kid knew what his exit velo was.
Mm-hmm.
So really, I still think that we're using pretty, not archaic, but pretty much we're still with the standard, what your velocity is on certain pitches and things like that. I think as we go on, we're gonna get a whole new level with the spin rates and things like that. As more, once again, these facilities start to get them, and as this technology becomes cheaper to get, the Rapsodo machines and such forth. But when I go to a high school game, I just can't set up a TrackMan,
Yeah.
So a lot of that has to do with when you're watching a guy. One thing that I've tried to explain is that we're all of a sudden becoming amazed at spin rate. Well, he has a high spin rate. There used to be a time where you could figure out if a guy had high spin rate. You'd go to the game, he's throwing 84. 84 is above average for high school, okay?
Yeah.
He's throwing 84, and he's blowing it by everyone like it's 95. And you sit there and you start to question, well, is the kid terrible that he's facing? Or does something different going on here? Typically, we would put in quotations fastball with life, right? Or he throws the rise ball, or
The invisible, yeah.
The invisible. Yeah, the kid had spin rate, and we just were trying to figure out a way why his fastball wasn't or is more effective than the guy throwing 88. So I think we've always kind of done that, and now we have a new metric to actually prove it. But from an analytical side, I think what's happening too is that we're taking these really kind of bare measurements and using them to recruit without seeing the whole picture. So you'll get the text from the kid, hey, my exit velo is 100. Holy crap, that's awesome, right? And then you see your video, and you're like, wow, this kid looks like a softball player,
Yeah.
And then when you go, okay, what'd you hit in high school? And he comes back, well, I didn't play every game in high, and all of a sudden the real thing comes out. Like, it's easy to be a strong kid and get exit velo. When it's not easy to be a strong kid, have exit velo and about 500.
Yeah.
So that's where I think we're actually going back to some of the older statistics, because the new ones, I mean, if you want to find a kid with an exit velo of 90 plus, which is unbelievable for a kid at the age of 16, dude, you can find thousands of them now. It's so easy to find. It's still really hard to find a kid at 500. So
Yeah.
you have to go back a little bit and start to ask those other questions now. So you say, hey, I know physically the kid is at, point A, but where was he during the year in terms of, where'd you bat him in the lineup? How many strikeouts did he have? Does he see spin at all? And these are all questions that we're going back to their other coaches. Once again, the very traditional recruiting questions and scouting questions.
Yeah. So does the exit velo and all that stuff, does that lure you down to see a kid? So you scroll
It,
down the PG list and you
sure,
see
sure,
98?
sure, sure. Well, I don't know if it's just that, but if someone that we trust reaches out and say, "Hey, this kid is," I always like to use the word freak. Hey, we got this. He's a freak. He's fast and he's strong. You got to see him. That can certainly get us out for sure. But at the same time, if a kid only has, let's say, an 80 exit velo, which isn't, off the charts, but that he's just a really good player, we're not going to allow his 80 exit velo to be a reason why we're not going to recruit him.
Yeah.
It's like the same thing with the 60 time. The kid's in high school, he's running a 7.3. He's not very fast. But, he also, every time we see him, he's hitting doubles. Well, I see a lot of guys who are super fast who can't put the ball in play. So we're gonna still stay with the kid who looks more like the baseball player. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's becoming probably more underrated than ever, because I see, you probably shake your head going through Instagram like I do, where, you see a kid like literally, like you said, hitting a softball swing that'd be a home run on hit tracks, and you're like, what are we doing? Like, is this baseball? Because that swing doesn't exist in the real world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. There's a great clip, and you can find it. It's I don't know if you've seen it. Did you see it when Joey Votto? He was on MLB Network this year, and he was talking about. I think it was actually on like their Saturday Kids show, but you can look it up. Joey Votto, MLB Network, talking about launch angle. Did you see that at all?
I think so. Wasn't it maybe like 6 months ago?
Yeah, and he's
Yeah.
basically saying that and the best part he says that we're not selling the whole picture. So, like when Josh Donaldson said, if your coach is telling you to hit a ground ball, don't listen to him, whatever it was, what you're not telling the rest of the kids that Josh Donaldson is one of the top 10 baseball players alive. So he's gotten to the point in his career where he's like, you know what? I am going to start to cheat a little bit here. I am going to try to lift a little bit more here because I can do it. And I think that's kind of what's going on in a lot of these facilities and stuff, is that you can train velocity, you can train exit velo, but it's not always going to translate into success during the game. And I think that's something that we have to be very careful of when we're doing our recruiting is, yeah, you know what, look at this kid. This kid just hit a ball, a front toss and it went 104 miles an hour. Well, that's ridiculous. And then you have to, like you said, you have to start saying to yourself, yeah, but but that looks like he's going all or nothing.
Yeah.
What's he going to look like when he goes up against Houston and, that guy's going to be, carving him up with change ups in and on the hands with hard stuff. You start to say to yourself, these things typically don't look like they work at our level.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing.
Yeah. So do you feel like some of these kids, because I think it's a great thing that everyone is more educated now than ever. Like you can learn so much about hitting, strength training, all of it, by 15 years old. You can, people are light years ahead of where they were when I was growing up, when you were growing up. Do you feel like with some of these recruits, like say you got a kid who's taking that softball kind of swing and he's like super bought into what his coach is doing, is that a red flag for you? Is that kid gonna be coachable? Can you coach him like, hey, out of that stuff? If it's kind of like, I don't know, do you see that now?
You're seeing it more. Yeah, it could definitely be a red flag. It could definitely be, and from the pitching side too. You have these guys doing a lot of weighted ball things that certainly I typically don't coach for the main reason was, I wasn't coached on it, so I don't feel comfortable doing it. It's one of those like, I didn't do this. I'm not an expert on this. Not saying I'm a super expert on pitching, but at least I did that. At least
Yeah.
I was there. Uh, so and what you're starting to see is that it does get to be a red flag because they tend not to uh, drive home the things that are going to be successful when they get up here. One of the things that we've been starting to do now with our guys is we're making them actually take baseball quizzes. You know, in terms of
When the white thing comes near you, what do you do with your mitt? A,
but
make it go in it.
yeah, but
B,
more in
hide
terms of
from it.
just like, just baseball IQ stuff. Because, like I said, you're right, man. You're going to have guys in there at a younger age understanding, biomechanics and things like that, but they don't understand the very simple game that we play at times as well.
Yeah.
Because there's so much more of an emphasis on getting that exit velo from 80 to 81. Getting the fastball to 83 to 85. Well, whatever it ends up being, they're certainly not okay. Being able to hit a ball to the right of second base without altering your swing too much. Being able to use the middle of the field more often. Being able to keep your hands back on off-speed pitches. Being able to understand what the defense is trying to do to you. On the flip side, with a pitcher, you might be throwing 85, but what's it mean when you see a kid who has really low hands up at the plate? Where do you think you should be able to attack them? What happens, when a kid is jumping all over your fastball start off? How do you go and attack that to get them off your fastball later on in the game? All these things that they're not focusing on because they're focusing on really one thing, And those are the type of things that if you do get a kid like that, when they come in, you're starting to see that those guys have the hardest adjustments because their game isn't well rounded. Their game is very much, turned into, almost like a gymnastics event where they're just trying to get the best score possible. We don't do that. Our game, and especially, the difference between this level and, let's say, an AAU game is just so much different than when they get there. If they're not well rounded, they tend to have a really hard time surviving.
Yeah, and I think like there might be a Joey Gallo effect where as soon as you see one example of someone who's a freak of nature do something, you think that then that applies to you. Like, people do that with like Dustin Pedroia. Like, oh, I'm 5'6", it's fine. Like, I don't need to gain weight. It's like, no, dude, Dustin Pedroia is like the best fielder ever. And he's just like the best baseball player. Like, you need to be big and strong. Don't be like Dustin Pedroia. And like Joey Gallo, like how many guys could hit 230 or was it 220 or 210 and hit 40 jacks? And like he was legitimately, I think the kind of the consensus was that he was a valuable player, right? Even though by traditional standards, like hitting 210 is not great. But you can't do that as a high schooler when who has power like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're right.
Outliers are tough examples, I think, for kids to grasp sometimes because they want to say, oh, I could be like that. Where, like, for every Jose Altuve and Dustin Pedroia, that gives kids hope, which is great because you're right. Like, small players can be amazing players, and Altuve proves that every day. But that's not to say that can, I think, on the other hand, lead to complacency where kids that need to do other things don't do them because, like, oh, I can just be like him.
Yeah, I think something that we have, our hitting coach describes it, I think, the best way is that when you're seeing guys at that level of baseball, Gallo, Donaldson, and, who else? Trout, okay? You're not just seeing a baseball player. What you're seeing is, the highest degree black belt, okay, at baseball. Okay, you're seeing Bruce Lee, okay? You are not Bruce Lee. The problem that we have is that you have to get the other belts first before you get to that degree black belt. And that is something they have a very hard time understanding. And it's something that we're trying to get through. Like, we're focusing on the cool. The home run is cool. The launch angle is cool. The exit velo is cool. It's all cool. That we don't want to look at the guys who are really good and they don't do it cool. I don't think Joey Votto does it very cool. Telling guys to hit balls hard on a line in the middle of the field, it takes a really long time to be able to do that, and it's very hard. But if you get good at that, you're going to have more success as you go on, more sustained success. But it just takes a lot longer to get good at. Whereas we've talked about, if you just keep flipping me soft toss, and I get this angle correctly, yeah, I'm be able to hit it farther and hit it harder. But the problem is, when you get into a game, the guy's not putting it on a tee. And the guy's not making it nice and straight and easy to hit. So, the game aspect of it really makes it a lot different. And I feel like most guys and kids don't want to look at the way the other guys are doing that are really successful as well. They just want to see the cool ones, right?
Yeah.
Steve Malinowski at Hartford says it the best way. I think this is the best way for guys that like to live inside a cage. The cage is the zoo. When you go to the zoo and you see a lion, nothing happens to your heart, right? Oh my God, look at that lion. That's really cool. You go and you see a gorilla. Yeah, look at that gorilla. That's really cool. If you got dropped off in the jungle and you saw a lion and you saw a gorilla, your heart's doing a lot of different things. And you certainly are going to be acting a lot differently. Well, that's what they keep forgetting when they go into the cage. My swing looks good here. I'm feeling great. I just hit that 90. That's great. Well, guess what? When you get dropped off in the jungle and you got to face a kid throwing 93 with an exploding slider, you're going to realize that the zoo might not have been the real thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And so what do you think the first adjustment? So you get these kids that are good athletes, they're good players, they come in to UConn. Tell me the first couple adjustments, and it might be across the board, or maybe there's position player specific or hitter specific or pitcher specific, but what do you feel like kids do the first couple things to pull themselves up to the level that you want them at, or to where they can compete well?
I think the first thing that has to happen is that for the most part they have to fail, and you have to let them fail. I think as coaches, I think our natural reaction is when you see somebody not doing something the right way, you jump on it right away. Nope. Let them fail. Let them do it their way, and then let them come to you. It's a lot more easier when they're asking for help than when you're trying to say you're doing it wrong. You know what I mean? Because they've been doing it right their whole life. Now they're saying, hey, I've been doing this right my whole life, and it's not working. Well, that's a lot more powerful. Okay? I think the easiest thing, though, for most guys, day one, just to kind of harp on, is just playing the game the right way. Are you going out there? Are you doing the things that you can control in terms of, are you hustling? Are you running balls out? Are you playing, are you playing at a high level? Are you paying attention to the signs and things that we're asking you to do to make the game a little bit easier? Or are you still in, Johnny All-Star mode where you hit a pop-up to something and that ran it out, where everything starts to spiral on you? And from a pitching standpoint, same thing. Are you going out there and just think you're going to strike everybody out so you're not paying attention to runners and all the other things that we've asked you to work on? Well, now it gets really hard because now we're bad at everything. Instead of just trying to do the things that, the things that will make it much easier for you, simplifying, making the game easier so we can actually start to attack your skill set once you're ready.
Gotcha. Yeah, my college coach said the same thing. He, in the fall as a freshman, he wasn't going to say a whole lot to you because he knew you were just going to nah, coach, I know what I'm doing, that kind of thing. And he would let you get destroyed and then come back and talk to him. So
I had a kid one time who, he was out there and he had, at second base, he had his glove completely open and our guys were stealing his signs, and he wasn't good at holding guys on. They were running on him. And he wasn't good at feeling his position. And I was just out there umping that day behind, and I was like, "Hey, man, you got to close up your glove. They're stealing your signs, man, and they're just destroying you because they're stealing on off speed pitches." And he looked at me and goes, "I just want to pitch."
Wow.
And it was just one of those things where it's like, "Yeah, man, this is pitching, I know that you might, I know that you thought pitching was just you versus the hitter, but this is pitching too, And I think for some guys, that's what they kind of get into too, because it's just not part of the game that they play prior to coming to college.
Yeah, and I think that's And I don't know if people don't grasp that as much anymore because they don't maybe play as much like backyard baseball or whatever it is. But I think that sentiment that throwing the ball towards the guy who's squatting down there with his mitt is pitching, but it's
Yes.
not. It's all the other things. And
Well, look at how we train them. Look at how terribly we train these guys. And what I mean by that is, you look at the system that's currently available. Okay, you have obviously high school baseball, which is the closest that you're going to get, at least from a baseball standpoint, to getting to play. Now, depending on the high school that you play or the league that you're in, your talent levels might be completely off, right? So you might come from an area that doesn't have strong high school baseball. But for the most part, high school baseball, you should be seeing things that you tend to see more often in college. You're going to see more bunts. You're going to see, hopefully, more guys, playing the whole game. The score matters. There's not a time limit. All these things that when they go away for the summer, it's completely different. Yet guys playing with wood bat, they're not strong enough for wood bat. They're not. But we continue to have them swing wood bat. Why? I have no idea. Every single game should be with a metal bat, in my mind. And I've heard the other, well, if you can swing with a wood bat, you can swing with anything. College guys can't swing with wood bats. Go look at the Cape Cod League. They got major leaguers all over that place. Go look at their batting averages. They can't swing with a wood bat yet. So let's have them have metal bats up until then, okay? The second thing is they play with time limits, and they play AAU where the games really don't matter. In AAU, we've gotten to the point now where this is my time. I don't care if we win or lose. And I know that you're saying, oh, that's not true. It is kind of true. If you pitch 3 innings and they pull you out after 3 innings and you had a really good day, you're jacked, especially if the coaches were there. If the guy behind you just blew it and you're not getting that trophy on Sunday, oh, well. UMBC saw me today and I pitched pretty well. I know they're probably gonna want to see me again or reach out to me or whatever happens next. You know what I mean? And that's something that it's just a really, really terrible way of doing it, because when they come up here, the first thing that we try to tell them is that this has to be a team effort for us to get where we want to go. Everything that we do matters. Where in the summertime it doesn't. I mean, I can't tell you how many summer games you don't see guys run out. You don't see guys know how many outs there are. You never see a bunt. I mean, ever, unless the kid is so fast that he's showing that he can bunt for a hit, so he can get a time down the first. You're not going to see one.
Yeah.
You never see multiple signs. You never see pick signs at second base. You never see backdoor picks. You don't see any of these things because the coach there, that's not his job. His job is to basically be your promoter. So he's gonna put the guy there where he's supposed to be, and he's gonna tell the coaches that hey, this kid's playing so and so, and it really makes the game secondary. The game becomes very much more like an exhibition. And then when they come in here, we are psychos, right? Everything matters. Everything matters. Everything you do matters. That we're just doing a terrible job training them. And I'm super fortunate when I tell guys that I am so happy I was a part of that last wave of local town Legion baseball, because I didn't have to go through it the way they did. So for me, I always feel very, very fortunate because these guys are having a really rough time when they come in because of it.
Yeah. And I think that, it's definitely a tough cycle to break because you just want to keep playing and, you want to make it to the next level and you learn over time, what scouts look for. And everyone's, I think, kind of just lining up because of what you guys do, as recruiters. I think everyone's part of this whole big cycle.
Yep.
But you're right. The art of I want to win baseball games, it seems like it gets lost and then it gets regained at some point. Maybe that's college, and maybe you lose it again in pro ball, depending, because it goes back to the same thing. Guys in pro ball want to make it to the majors. They want to get promoted.
Right.
But at the same time, it always, that complacency, oh, I'm okay that we lost, it wears on you over time. It feels unnatural. And then I think you start to gain it back if you have that competition in you. And most of the guys I think that probably play at the highest levels, or that go on past college baseball, they do have that that competition in them. But it is easy to
Yeah,
brush it off, when you did your job, and that's all you can do because we're all process oriented, right? But
yeah,
it's okay to be like, this sucks. Like we lost. I
yeah.
don't know.
And I think the other thing too is when you're doing these AAU tournaments where pitchers are only going 3 innings and then they're throwing a showcase on Wednesday, and then it just becomes it's just very unnatural. I cannot, I don't know how many guys go out there and it's actually, on them to win or lose the game as a pitcher. Typically they're piggybacking. So they did 3 innings and then your buddy did 3 innings. Well, you guys did a nice job. That's great. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen in college, that we don't have games like that. But how many guys are going out there where they have to pitch in a situation where they're tired, where they have to pitch in a situation where it is all on them, whether they win or lose that game. And these sorts of things, hey, I pitched, 6 innings today. I gave up 1 run and I lost. Ugh. That awful feeling that even though you were good that day, that you lost. Those things aren't happening anymore. Especially the summertime. You have a guy going out there, hey, this 3 innings, I gave up the 1 run, but whatever. I pitched pretty well. You can check it off the box that you did an okay job. That's the sort of thing that I think is being lost. That when they get to college, it's a brand new, thought process, and definitely the stakes are so much higher, and there's so much more pressure during those games that it does not train them very well. And I think that's usually why most guys, when they come in, have such a hard time adjusting to it. And then once you do get adjusted to it, it's not that bad. But early
Yeah.
on, I think that's usually the toughest thing for them.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So I want to get your opinion real quick on summer baseball at the collegiate level. So I know you coach at the Cape,
Yeah.
and obviously you guys I'm sure you send guys off to the Cape every year. So tell me
Sure.
a little bit about that, because I think that's number one. There's a couple of things I think that are changing, which is more and more players are taking the summer off to like train,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear your take on. And also, I just think a lot of parents don't understand. They're not exposed to that yet. Like what happens in summer baseball when you then go to college.
I, I am. I'm a little disappointed in where it looks like the culture of our sport is going when it comes to summer baseball. It seems more and more kids are taking off and they're not playing, and I think that's a real. I just think that's a really disappointing outcome that's becoming with. I have to believe it's with the salaries and stuff that the coaches are getting. Don't get me wrong. I like that the salaries are going up, but I think it's a byproduct of it as well. But there's to me there's two main issues with summer baseball. The first one is there's too many teams. There's just too many teams. There's too many leagues. And the Northwoods has a bunch of teams. They play whatever 80 games. Yeah, the Cape League. In New England alone, you have the Cape. You have the Futures League. You have New England Collegiate Baseball League, and then right outside that, you have New York Collegiate Baseball League, the Perfect Game League, and the Hamptons League, and the ACBL. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
it's a
too many.
lot.
There's just too many. So we're watering down a product that should be very good. If you're a pretty good college baseball player, you should have those leagues available to you to get better in the summertime. On top of that, if you're not good enough, there are more than enough men's leagues throughout the country where you can play throughout the summer. So, when I was playing, that was that was an option, and it wasn't a frowned upon option. Whether you had to stay back and work in the summer, when you were a freshman, and any CBL team didn't want you because you didn't play enough, and you go off into the summer, and you play with a bunch of men, and you come back. These options used to be there, and now it's like, oh no, I'll just play in the summer league. Where guys are coming and going. The second thing is that guys are just being shut down and guys aren't playing. We play a sport. I believe that you get better playing every day. You have to play every day. And I think with our guys is, or our generation is that if they don't feel great, they want to come home. If they're not in a situation in terms of an area where they want to spend 2 months, they want to come home. If they're not doing well, they want to come home. If they're not playing every day, they want to come home. And it's a really frustrating thing because it's like they don't want to face reality. On the other side of it, you have college coaches now telling their best players don't go because they're so afraid of them getting hurt. And because of the contracts that are involved and the money that's involved, they want to have their best players available. Well, I am trying to explain to people and to some of my colleagues that I don't think I'm that good of a coach. And what I mean by that is that I don't think I should be the only voice my guys hear. Like, I don't get ego. My ego doesn't get wounded when a kid comes back and is like, hey, I learned a cutter this summer, and look, it's really good. Oh, great. Or, hey, I learned this new training regimen. It makes my arm feel great. Well, that's not my training regimen. I don't do that. So for me, I think that, this game is very much a global game. It's a game where the more information is being shared and that you're learning from different sources, the better your game gets rounded out. The way coaches explain things sometimes are a lot better than when they don't, or the way another guy doesn't, and, it gets to a point that you're taking that opportunity away from a kid because you're just afraid they might get hurt and that's wins off your record. That's not fair. Now, don't get me wrong, the kid's like, listen, I am tired. You get pitches like, my arm doesn't feel great, I'm tired. Okay, fine. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Or hey, my knee is killing me. Every time I try to beat out a ground ball, I'm just feeling, pain in my knee or something. Well, yeah, you want those kids home. But if you're a 20-year-old kid and you're in really good shape, are we now saying that baseball is now a sport that is breaking you down now? Is that where we're at now with it? We expect them to play 162 of these, by the time they're 25, but we can't ask them to play more than 70 in a year now? I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
I just think it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I had 2 points to your reasoning. I had a friend who runs one of these leagues, a collegiate league, and it was interesting. He was saying how, less and less of the bigger schools are sending him their kids, and a lot of the bigger school kids are the first ones to go home when they struggle. They're the 1st ones. He's like, it just seems like these kids have such an amazing clubhouse, such amazing food, such amazing fields to play on all the time that when they go to a place that's a little grittier, that's not, this gorgeous, everything done for them kind of situation, and they don't do well, they just want to just quit. And that some of these bigger school kids, like, sometimes seem like they're coddled, which I thought was really interesting. And I seen that in independent ball. Like in independent ball, which, I played six years of independent ball.
Nice.
You don't see guys from University of Miami playing indie ball. You don't see many guys even from like a UConn play, and it's certainly not a rag on UConn. You just see a lot of guys who didn't get experiences play indie ball. Like I played at UMBC. I was super thankful for the chance, but I played in front of 100 fans, every game.
Right.
So I was desperate to play in front of thousands of people. I wanted that experience. I wanted to play on nicer fields. Like I wanted to get all that stuff. But I feel like when you get all that, you play at a place, like Southern California, like indie ball is a step down, like the competition's better, but every other aspect of your life is a step down. The food,
Correct.
The clubhouse, the travel, everything. And who wants that? Who wants to go backwards? Like you want to feel like you're going up. But I think most of the minor leagues, and I know Kevin, our friend Kevin, and everyone else would corroborate, the minor leagues are hard. The services are nice, but the travel's brutal, the food's brutal, the clubhouses are often brutal. They're a step down from all these big college fields. Like I was looking at University of Kentucky's new clubhouse and all that stuff. I'm like, I don't know that this is the right thing. Like I think it's amazing. It's great that they take care of their players that much, but how does that prepare them for like the grind of pro ball when they move on? It just
and once again,
it seems crazy.
It probably doesn't. I think that they're probably recruiting talent that'll be good enough to overcome it because their talent will certainly, hopefully, be able to get past it. But it also comes back to that thing where that I've talked to guys about too, is that do you like playing baseball or not?
Yeah.
If you really like playing baseball, and I've told this to our guys on numerous occasions, then you don't care where you're playing in the summer. because you're just jacked that you're going to be able to play baseball, right? Like, hey, we're playing every day. Awesome. And I really do mean this. When I was fortunate to play one summer down in Newmarket, Virginia. I lived on a farm. I was not from an area that had much farmland. I certainly didn't grow up on one. There were guys in the stands that were clearly farmers that were coming out at night, after they did all their chores. Real blue collar, awesome town. Okay. I didn't listen to country music growing up. You never heard it on the radio stations where I lived in Connecticut. That's all you heard down there. So from a cultural standpoint, completely different. I didn't play one day, man. I was playing. We were playing every day. We were playing every single day. This is great. The people, the fans care about us. They're treating us. They treat us very well, and we were playing every day. I don't understand what happens to a lot of these guys where it's like you said, like, well, wait a second. There's not 4,000 people in the stadium. I can't play in front of this.
Yeah.
What? Says who? It's still a game. If my arm was good enough to keep on pitching, I tell my guys this too. My arm is not anymore. But if my arm was good enough, I would be pitching in a summer league somewhere, whether it be Sunday mornings or something, because there's nothing better than it. There isn't. There's nothing in my mind better than playing. If I was good enough to go out there and play third base somewhere, I would be doing that because there's nothing better than baseball. So what do I have to do instead? I have to play old man softball in the fall to get like the most generic sense of what the game is, right?
Yeah.
The most boiled down version of it, because that's how much I like it. I don't think our guys love it. And I think that's another major issue. And I think we create these scenarios where they can only play, when they are being treated the way they feel like they need to be treated. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. You get all your launch angle in playing softball, that's for sure. But yeah,
that's probably why I'm not good softball player.
But I also agree with your point where, I know one of my biggest mentors was one of my summer ball coaches, and he was a gritty. He played independent ball. He was drafted by the Red Sox, played a year for them, played indie ball for 6 years. He was a left-handed pitcher, and I learned more in that summer, and I played 2 more summers for him. But I learned so much that summer about pitching. We just didn't have a full-time pitching coach my first 3 years. So we had a catcher he's their head coach now, and he's a great guy, and he knows a lot about pitching. But I don't think there's a replacement for a true pitching coach, a guy like you said who's done it.
Yeah.
And I just learned so much from him and a different way. And the thing I learned that was different was just his personality was fundamentally just way out in left field compared to my other coaches. And I learned just toughness and grittiness and like that losing is not okay attitude from him. That was really big for me at that point in my life. I didn't know it at that point, but he was a really big influence on me. And if I hadn't played summer ball, I wouldn't have gotten that. And it would have definitely changed my career path, for the worse. So I was thankful for Coach Duffy, who's still part of my life. Like he's, and so like you said, I think that's admirable that you're not to the point where you're trying to control their experience because you just never know what you're going to pick up from somebody.
And where are the comparisons then? Let's say you are a pitcher on my team and you think I'm a clown, which I'm sure there might be one, right? You think, what, Mac is a clown. Where is your comparison? The only person that you're hearing from is the person that you think is a clown or you don't think might know his stuff or doesn't know how to get through to you. If you don't go off and meet other coaches and listen to other philosophies and listen to other players that talk about it, I think the other thing too, and I've talked to a lot of my colleagues, I'm like, listen, if you think you're pretty good, you should send them away because they're going to come back with horror stories of what they feel like their experience is. And they're going to buy in so much more when they come back, as long as you're open to the things that they've learned. You know what I mean? So
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
You're not giving them anything to compare off of. It's just your tone, your instruction over and over and over again. And if they're not having the highest levels of success, or if there's something that they feel like they're lacking that you haven't been able to pull out of them, well, then that's on you. Or on the flip side, maybe they do go off. They do have another coach. Maybe things aren't the same sort of way for them. Maybe they don't, and they come back, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing. this guy, I like the way this guy does it. Or it's, hey, you know what, coach, I really like this sort of long toss program. This made my arm feel better. And as long as you don't have, really, super strong ego to change, all of a sudden you got a guy who's now buying in. He's just learning more on his own about his own game. And once again, I just think it's crazy. What we're basically saying is that I'm the greatest coach you're ever going to have. Just listen to me for 3 years. That's just insane.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I know I appreciate my college coach more with each passing year because he was so big on like the life lessons and preparing you for real life and just all that stuff that I mentioned him a bunch in this episode with you. Like as the years go on and as I'm exposed to more people and I'm coaching people, I realize that he gets smarter as the years go by. So so I think there's a lot there. So as we wrap up, Coach, is there anything else that you'd like to divulge from
I feel like
deep within the labyrinth that is your brain?
Did I complain enough? I feel like I just complained. If you're a young pitcher and you're listening to this, or you're a parent of a young pitcher and listening to it, just try to learn as much as you can, watch as much as you can. Like what you were saying before, there's just so much available now for guys to see. There's so much available for them to learn, and there are so many different ways of doing it now with technology. It's just learn as much as you can. Try to get as much knowledge as humanly possible, okay? And apply it to the right things. Like I said before, this is not gymnastics. You don't throw one pitch and get a 9.8 from the Russian judges, okay? We have to get guys out. And there's a million different ways of doing it, okay? And there's a million different ways to go about it. So because of that, just try to learn as much as you can, and try to use those resources. Hey, I was just talking to Vance. I'm going to give you a plug here, but your pitch isn't complicated book. I picked that up last year for a few reasons. Listen, I've read through it. Some things I really liked. Some things I'm like, what? That's a little bit out there for me. I can't teach that, and especially the mechanical stuff, some of those things. But I kept it because I felt like if a guy came into my office and my explanation wasn't getting through to him, I could at least be like, well, here's how another guy explains it. And I thought it was very general. It was very easy to read. It was very, you explain things very simply for somebody to pick up. But my point is that it was just one of those things like, here, look at this. Hey, you want to know how to throw a change up like Johan Santana? Google it. You want to throw Mariano's cutter? Google it. You know what I mean? Like, There's just so much there for you. You want to hear how Maddox used to set up hitters? Google it. There's just so much information out there for them. Don't just be a guy who is, hey, I'm going to pick up this 4-ounce ball to get from 87 to 88 because now I'm better. That's not how this always works. So that would be my last thing. Is if you're listening to this, please, put in the time and effort to just learn more.
I appreciate that. Well, I appreciate the kind words about my book. And yeah, if you're out there listening to this, hopefully this podcast is giving you hope because he basically described me, who's the most unathletic person you could find. You don't have to be able to field bunts well. You don't have to be able to play basketball well. If you just do a couple things good.
At some point, I'd like for you to field bunts okay.
Yeah. Although, funny story, I legitimately hate fielding bunts. I'm fine when they're far enough away where I can throw them hard, but I get the yips when I get within like 40 feet, so I got to stay long range. But
yeah,
I somehow managed to not get a single comebacker or bunt for, I think, the first 48 of my 50 appearances in like my second to last season. I was just like, I hit like late August, and I was just like, I haven't got a single comebacker all year. This is the best year of my life. Like, no one has to know that I can't do any of that stuff. It's so great. So, well, Coach, are there ways that anyone can follow up with you on social media? Is there anywhere you'd like them to lead back to you?
I'm not a Twitter guy. I think that's best for everyone. Every now and then, when I do have free thoughts, if I did have an avenue to let them out, you might have students, outraging outside my office. So we don't want to do that. But I have an email, joshua.mcdonald at UCONN.edu. If anybody wants to reach out to me, I'll get back to them. But that's about it. That's about as much technology as I have.
Okay, keeping it simple. So yeah, send him a letter, attach it to a homing pigeon, and
Yes.
send
Yes.
it out there.
Yes.
All right, well, Josh, thanks so much for being on the show. I think this is an awesome conversation, and best of luck to you guys out there in Alaska and Siberia this year.
Thanks a lot, Dan.
All right, well, that wraps it up for today's episode. I want to thank again my guest, Josh MacDonald. He is, again, the pitching coach and recruiting coordinator for UConn baseball. And, today was just a really awesome conversation. He's very candid. He's very to the point. Pitching, it's getting harder to navigate, I think, than ever. The recruiting process is very difficult to navigate. But I think he gave a lot of really great insights as to, what you should be doing as a player, as a parent, what you should value and what you should kind of ignore. So hopefully today gave you some clarity if you're, the parent or a player in high school baseball, where you're trying to understand like what the process should look for you. Because again, just, to mirror one of his, I think, really good take-home statements is that you have to find a school that fits you, and you don't want to go there and have this miserable experience where you can't play, you can't compete, maybe you went a little bit too high for your ability, and it just becomes a struggle. So if you enjoyed this show today, please share it, send it out on Facebook, shoot a tweet, and leave a comment. Let us know what you enjoyed most. And lastly, if you aren't yet, definitely subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. Check us out here. Don't forget that we have a video version as well, and that's on my YouTube channel. So feel free to jump on there, subscribe. We got a lot of new videos, podcast episodes, lots of stuff going on. So thanks again for being here, and we'll see you next week on Dear Baseball Gods.